Greetings, students, and welcome to chapter number 15. So let's talk about what is going on in the brain of our teenagers. It's kind of a scary statement in general, right? But let's see what is happening in our developmental processes here. So our adolescents, 12 to 18 or 11 to 18, are going through what we call egocentrism. And so similar to the word ego, it really means that there is a sense of self-centeredness, right? Think of when you were back in high school, it seems like the world revolves around your issues. Right? Whether it's you want to be at an activity that night and your mom or dad can't take you to the football game and you're throwing a fit, a meltdown, whatever it is, you feel like it's this intense thinking about yourself, how you look, how you present yourself, the friends you have, whether or not so-and-so is going to like you. All of these tend to occupy your thinking. Not as much a time that we see a lot of compassion and empathy and a time of giving to others, because really it's just all about you. And as parents, you know, we kind of understand that they think it's all about them, but we know the world is a much larger place. But this is normal. So it is normal to think or expect that your teenagers will be kind of self-absorbed, if you will. So it begins at puberty, and then what happens is we may see it again when our young people go off to college, because that first freshman year college experience, new campus, your friends are not with you, family might not be with you, right? So all of these new things are going on and you want to fit in. And so in order to fit in, you kind of are just intensely focused on yourself and how you present and what you're wearing and all these different things, right? So that's egocentrism, right? And our young people are experiencing what we think of as the imaginary audience. The imaginary audience is similar to what the term says there. It's this belief that there's this audience or group of people that are watching everything you do, that are watching or looking at what you're wearing, that are talking about you. So like in the picture here, right? We see people whispering and we think, oh, they definitely noticed that zip on my face, right? They think it's about them all the time. And so therefore, they go through high school or they go through this time period wanting to fit in. So the kind of goal here for them is, I want to fit in. I don't want to be like the oddball. I don't want to be different because I don't want them to be laughing at me, talking about me, all of these different kinds of things. And I know that they're all watching me. It's fictitious, right? Everyone's not all watching you, but we feel that way. These young people feel that that there is an imaginary audience out there watching my every move. Mm-hmm. They also go through what we call the Invincibility fable. This really means nothing can happen to me. That's what it means. So it is, along with that self-centeredness, that egocentrism, it's this focus that you cannot be overcome or be harmed by anything. So this is why these young people, do risky behaviors. So this is why we drink and drive. This is why we drink and drive at 100 miles an hour down the road. This is why we drink and do drugs and drive, right? This is why we make choices that are not, they're not healthy, they're scary, they're risky behavior. But the thing is, we think, I'm 17. Nothing can happen to me. The world is my oyster. Life is ahead. Right? And that is very false thinking, because a great deal of our motor vehicle accidents come from our young teenage drivers, whether that be through intoxication or other speeding or whatever it be. But we lose a lot of our young people every year. And so that's what it is. It's this thought or process that I'm young, nothing can happen to me. All right, and so now we are in this kind of fourth and final stage of cognitive development, which is we are in the formal operational thought. So not only can I think logically, right, and in the pre-operational thought in our elementary school years, now I can even do some hypothetical thinking. I can do some abstract reasoning. I can understand things that aren't right in front of me. And so that is formal operational thought. And because of that, we're going to talk about a couple different things here. And these tend to throw students off for the exam, so I'm going to explain them to you. Number one, as adolescents engage with hypothetical thinking. What is hypothetical thinking? So the hypothetical, right? It's when you throw a scenario out there without being very specific about it. So if you say something to your dad like, so dad, what would happen if like one of your kids were to take your car without permission and they were in like a fender bender accident? What would the punishment for that be? So you're throwing out a hypothetical, yet there might be some reasoning or thinking behind it, right? So you're throwing out these false scenarios, if you will. When we can do that hypothetical thinking, it really helps us with what we call deductive reasoning. So inductive and deductive reasoning, we'll talk about the difference. Deductive reasoning is what we call the top-down method. It means that in my thinking, I start with something that's true, a principle, a truth, a thought. These are accurate. And then I take that principle and I make it into a specific example. For instance, I could say something like, I know the definition of a bachelor is an unmarried man. That's a true principle, right? That's correct. And I know I have this friend Joe, and Joe's never been married. Therefore, I'm going to say Joe is a bachelor, right? So I took the idea of what it means to be a bachelor, which is the truth, and I went down and I said, let me find a specific example for that truth. Inductive reasoning is the opposite. Inductive reasoning is what we call the bottom-up method. We start at the bottom, which means we start with the example and we try to make that example into a truth, and it doesn't always work. For example, I could say something like, my math teacher this semester is super skinny. And my math teacher last semester, she was super skinny too. Therefore, I'm going to say that all math teachers are super skinny. Is that correct? No, it's not correct. Because what we did was we tried to take two examples in this case, and we tried to fit the two examples and make them into a truth, and it's just not accurate. And this is the concern with inductive reasoning. But deductive reasoning is based on truth. It starts with the principle and makes an example of that principle. And so it's a good thing when we can deduce things or when we can do deductive reasoning. I'll go through it again when we have our study session video to prepare for the next exam, right? All right, so our teenagers today, we kind of give them the term or the label, the title of digital natives. So it's kind of like their native language is technology. That's what we're saying here. And it's the truth because, again, from the time my youngest was 5, she did her work on an iPad. Right? In schools, we now distribute iPads and different types of Chromebooks and all these things. Work is submitted on them. And so our kids grow up learning the language of technology. They can probably my kids can probably manage my phone better than I can because I grew up in a generation where we didn't actually use computers in elementary school or high school. Oh, a little bit in high school. And as we can see on the bottom slide here, it's really difficult for our older generation, right? Our elders or our senior citizens, they came from a time where, we just didn't know anything about computers. And so then it's almost like they have to learn a whole new language for them to become technology proficient. All right, research findings show us that about almost 1/3 of all high school students use technology at least or more than 3 hours per day. Right? So we're doing a lot. Now, again, using technology. So my kids submit all their homework on Google Classroom. So they're using technology to do work, not necessarily to game or to do other things, right? And so it's not a bad thing. We're not saying that technology, I love that they have Google Classroom. A lot less papers to deal with, losing papers, all that kind of stuff, right? And they can do it at home and submit it and it's done. So that's great, but be aware of that our students are online. It's almost like when I work with low-income children and I mentor in the county probation department program that I work in, I'm just so saddened when a lot of our low-income homes have no computer. So sometimes in my high school classes where I teach a Delta college class at a high school, sometimes my students are frequently using their phones. So their phone, they literally will type papers and then come to the school and print their papers there. They don't have access to technology. And so it's getting to be the point where we really need to have that access for your child's education. All right, cyber dangers. So we are just concerned about excessive usage. So high users, I mean, in other words, students that are online all the time can expect lower grades at school, right? We are visual creatures, all of us. We are drawn with our eyes visually. That's why some of you like watching these videos, because there's something about visual that helps tremendously. And that's why we're concerned about a lot of things our kids see at young ages. And so when we sit down and we start watching a movie or start watching things, it's hard to disconnect. It's hard to walk away from that. And so our kids are also the same. They get sucked in, and it's like it's so easy to just sit there hour after hour, whether it's watching things, gaming, or even just chatting online, different things. Right? But be careful, because we don't want to possibly lose out on academics. Cyberbullying, we mentioned bullying before, and cyberbullying was one of the different forms that we mentioned. So cyberbullying, again, is using technology or it's using social media to bully someone in the cyber world, in the world of the internet, instead of doing it maybe face-to-face or something. In the picture that you see here, what has happened is this particular young girl was a victim of cyberbullying. So as you see on the computer screen, some girls at her school created a fake Facebook page on behalf of this young student, and they portrayed her as a racist, sexually active drug user. Right? The parents of this young girl were actually able to sue the school district, because what had happened was these young girls that created this cyberbullying, they had actually bullied her at school, and she reported it to her teachers and the administration, and nothing was done about it. And then these girls took it to the next level, which is to say, we're going to go on the internet and we're going to do it that way. And there's some legal laws surrounding that. So be very, very careful of that. But yeah, this is just another form of way to try and hurt people. And again, bullying is always concerning, because somebody has low self-esteem if they bully. Right, something to be very concerned about with your adolescents, your teenagers, is this new thing. It's been around for a while. We call it sexting. So sexting is really concerning. It basically, sexting is when you send inappropriate pictures of yourself. So it is sexual photographs, whether it's of parts of your body, whether it's you doing sexual poses, partially nude, whatever it be. But 66% of teenagers report sexting because a date or a friend wants the picture. So there's several reasons to be concerned here. Number one is that we need to raise kids that understand that you're not really self-respecting yourself if you want to send nude photos of yourself to people. You're just not. That's not something that is a positive thing. Now, again, I'm talking about adolescents, number one. I'm not talking about adult, married, or long-term committed partners that, are sending each other pictures and things like that. That's different. Those are adults. We're talking about minors. We're talking about those under the age of 18. And so for adolescents, some concerns, really, really, you need to talk to your kids about this, because the young person may feel like, I'm sending it to my boyfriend. He's my boyfriend or my girlfriend, whatever it be. However, what happens when you break up? So might we be concerned? Because once you break up, does that mean your boyfriend might share that picture with others? Let's say it was a bad breakup, right? Could the whole football team now be looking at your nude or semi-nude photo? Because once you send someone that, you can't take it back. You can't get it back. It's there. It's on their phone. I'm also going to caution parents of young boys in particular. There's legal laws regarding opening up pictures on your phone or on your devices of nude minors. Right? It is illegal to do so. So your young children could be in trouble legally if they do that. And so therefore, if they get pictures from friends or whatever it be, don't open it up because, again, there's legal ramifications. It is child pornography. Anything of a semi-nude person under the age of 18 is considered child pornography. And so we need to be careful about that. All right, so some definitions regarding middle school and secondary school. So let's start at the bottom with middle school. So middle school is the time between elementary school and high school. Some schools do a little different, but in general, we have maybe 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 6th, 7th, 8th, just 7th and 8th. So there's different systems, but middle school is kind of this in between. And unfortunately, this is a time when kids start to learn. Maybe it's not so cool to be a science nerd. Like they go to middle school, they have different friends maybe, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you need to play sports, you need to do this. There's peer pressure to perform. And maybe there's not the peer pressure to do things you used to enjoy that were good for you, like science club. And so here is when we start to see signs that our kids are making poor choices and they're on this road to dropping out of high school. This is similar to, again, the program that I work with for the probation department. We're trying to catch these kids before they're at this place of being so far behind academically that they can't catch up. And then from middle school, we go on to high school. And high school is called secondary education, right? Elementary school or elementary education or primary education is kind of the kindergarten through 5th grade. And then we have middle school, maybe 6th through 8th. And then we have our high school 9 through 12. So it's the period after primary education, after elementary school, and before college, right? Tertiary education or tertiary is called college. And so what we know is, we've talked about education a little bit before, but in general, the U.S. does not fare well when it comes to graduating our students, graduating our young people. I think, gosh, we're in the 70s percentile, right? So that means we were graduating 70-something% of our students, meaning 30% or so are coming out with no high school diploma. And in today's world of employment, we really almost say you really need a 4-year degree. It's almost like that has become the high school diploma, except for those who go into trades. So trades are very valuable and we need those. But so therefore, if you don't even have a high school diploma, it makes finding a job that will support you very challenging. Right, and again, we mentioned before about NCLB or No Child Left Behind, and we can see here, we left lots of kids behind. So graduation rates for our kids here, and you see the blue line is the US of A, and we're down in that, looks like upper 70s maybe percentile, but we're lagging behind many countries. Right, and one of the challenges of middle school for our kids is this shift, is this transition. In other words, think about your elementary school experience. Typically in elementary school, we have one teacher all day long. So we have one teacher that teaches math, science, and you might go to PE and you come back to her or him. And so you have this relationship with the teacher that has you all day long. Right? In my kids' school, in our charter school, we actually have the same teacher for 2 grades. So kindergarten, 1st, you have the same teacher. 2nd, 3rd, you have the same teacher. And 4th, 5th, you have the same teacher. And the reason is because we really understand that the teacher builds relationships with the students, and the teacher learns how your child learns best. They can start to tell your child's moods. They can see when things are wrong or something's going on at home. And so they learn about your child. And so they have a relationship. Now, fast forward, this child moves on to middle school, and what we have is similar to the schedule we see up on top here. Now this child has 5 or 6 classes a day, different teachers for every one of those classes. And in those 45 minutes to an hour, these teachers are not building relationships. They just can't with, 400, 500 students or whatever it be. And so now your child is missing out on that kind of one-on-one attention. They're also, all of a sudden, I'm responsible to have this binder with divider tabs and be organized. And whoa, that's a whole other shift. You expect me to put the homework in the right place, and I just shove it all into the backpack in the pocket. That's what I do. So it's really hard. So our young people in middle school, especially boys, they tend to act out, get in trouble, have fights with the teacher, because this is a really scary kind of experience. Therefore, And parents tend to think, oh, my kids are bigger. They don't need my help. They do. They need help adjusting. Entering new schools is always challenging. Think of foster kids, or think of other kids who had to, military kids who had to move a lot. It's hard because when you go to a school, you invest in relationships, you build your friends. And then if all of a sudden your guardian says, okay, we got to move, all of a sudden you're starting it all over again. And when you go into the new school, you feel like they already have their cliques. There's no place for me here. And it's frustrating, and it's kind of hard. It's very hard, not kind of hard. It's very hard. All right, college bound. So for our high school students that are looking to go to college, unfortunately, research shows us that not all of our students who take AP classes. AP classes, AP stands for Advanced Placement. So advanced placement classes, these are classes that what you do is they're at a much higher level than the high school class, and at the end of the term, you will take an exam. And if you can pass that exam or score a certain number on that exam, you can actually receive college credit or not have to take that class, like psychology or whatever it be, in college. And so it's beneficial for the students, and it's hard work though. And we would think that the students that sign up for AP classes are prepared for college, but we know that's not true. So not all students who take AP classes are well prepared for college. And so it would be helpful if our high school teachers were doing a little bit more kind of helping our students be responsible, helping them understand time management's a big one, that college professors, they're not going to write on you to remind you that this paper is due. That's your responsibility, and that's a big shift. All right, so make sure to go through our clicker slides, and I will then see you for chapter number 16.